today is an amazing sunny day in Koh Samui, and I have invited beautiful Sarah here to share with us some of her nutrition tips. But before we start with a little background story, so I think I met Sarah 2 years ago, right, on Koh Samui?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. And the second time I ever met her or seen her, we have been on a little business meeting, and there has been an introduction game. And we talked about what's funny about ourselves. And actually, I don't remember anymore what I answered, but what I do remember is that Sarah said the funny thing about me is that I have a golden toilet seat.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
really? No, no, I always need to think about you
Yes,
when I
now
go
I
now to the
remember
toilet.
though.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So, the
Now I
first question
remember.
actually is what's funny about you?
Um, well, I would say probably my laugh. I can't do it on command, but people just a lot of my friends, it's like, oh, I don't see Sarah, but I hear her. She's here. And it's
I
kind
get
of this
this.
like gasping for air, like maybe hyena pitched noise, but I can't help it. It's me.
I see that. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your passion about nutrition and also your favorite nutrition tip.
Yes. Yeah, so I think, just my passion has come a lot from just my own journey with my health and with, you know, uh, dieting and really, starting, that vicious cycle, unfortunately,
Mm,
from a young age, and just through learning how to kind of heal myself through that process and learn what it means to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle. That's really where a lot of my passion comes from, is just that, kind of internal drive to figure things out for myself so I'm not going crazy. And yeah, so it kind of, led me to, to yoga. And then I took a course on health coaching where I learned um, tons of information on nutrition. That's the basis of the program. And then also different lifestyle habits as well. So really one of my biggest tips, it's hard to just pick one, but one of my main tips is really bio-individuality. And so what works for one person can be poison to another person, and really just understanding that there's no one size fits all to nutrition, and understanding that there's so many different factors that go into why you should or should not eat something, or what works for you. I mean, we had mentioned the idea of fasting, for example, and fasting, it's not good or bad or right or wrong.
mm,
Again, some of the factors that would go into deciding, if fasting would work for you is going to be your metabolic rate, your thyroid function, your age, your health history. Do you have allergies? Are there any chronic diseases? Also, your lifestyle in terms of activity, so your activity level and how physical you
okay.
are. So again, it's really hard to just pick, a yes or no answer to really any question, because it's always going to be different for every single person. So navigating through that, the best way I found is just, experimentation. And and
Like life.
yes, like life. So I'm sorry, it's not a one size, there's not just one answer, but um, really just trying different things on, and not getting caught up into a fad diet. That was one thing, that's hard, is, diets are designed in the sense that it assumes that you're going to feel the same way every single day of the diet. So it's not,
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, you're going to find out your friend Susie has cancer on day 5 of the diet, but I still want you to eat this raw salad with, I want you to eat the same thing you've been eating. And that's one of the biggest downfalls to either why we break our
Mm,
diets, or say we do the diet perfectly. When we get off the diet, we didn't learn how to prepare ourselves for all these situations that life can, bring our way, and really what that, does to the emotional side. And so, another big tip, and it's something I'm still very much, working on, is just learning how that we aren't just nourishing ourselves from a physical level with our foods, but also an emotional level. And so, it doesn't mean like eat a billion cookies necessarily,
yeah.
But it's understanding, okay, if I am sad, if I feel lonely, do I want something that's warm and comforting, and maybe like something like a soup or a lasagna, or thinking of those foods that maybe your grandma made or your mother made. And yes, those might not be the healthiest things the way that they made them, but it's completely possible to make a healthy version now. So say it's lasagna, for example, you can make a zucchini lasagna. So there's all these, you can, instead of beef, you can do a leaner meat, or you can do no animal protein. So again, there's so many different ways to make modifications, but you're still nourishing, you're still feeding that emotional factor. Whereas if you just ignore it and suppress it, and eat this raw salad even though it's not what you were in the mood for, and it doesn't satisfy you, then you're less likely 4 hours later to go looking in the fridge, or to end up just saying, screw it, and eat a bunch of naughty things, and end up actually overeating and binging. And then it kind of comes into that vicious cycle where then you're beating yourself up because you're thinking, oh, I blew my diet, I'm going to start again on Monday. And then it just snowballs.
Okay, I get it. That's really interesting, and I will look more out for that, actually, how I'm eating regarding that. If somebody's coming to you and saying, the person want to raise the frequency, like for me a lot about is raising the frequency, like physically, but also like mentally and emotionally. And if somebody's coming to you and saying, okay, what I can do regarding nutrition really to raise the frequency, what would you recommend there?
Yes, so for that, I recommend really focusing on natural, unprocessed foods. And so, just the more vibrant and alive and fresh the foods are that you are eating, you're absorbing that energy into your body. So take, for example, like an apple or a piece of fruit or a vegetable that you just picked. I mean, that's something, it's very fresh, it's straight from Mother Nature. It was just living until you decided to pick it, to eat. So it's still going to have a lot of that life, a lot of that, living, vibrant energy inside of you. Whereas, when we get into, fried foods, anything that's maybe cooked heavy in oil, you're losing so much of that essence, and a lot of that is to do with the temperature. Not that you necessarily have to eat raw, but just trying to make that shift from processed to natural is huge in itself. And it's also easier for your body to digest and break down. That's the other big thing. There's a lot of health products out there that are called healthy. I think one of the things now when I talk to clients that are in the States is there's a lot of these Impossible burgers and different soy-based meats or pea plant isolate-based meats, and it's crazy how much they taste like meat. You almost cannot tell, really. And just think, to take a pea and make it taste like beef, what kind of a process it has to go through to get there.
That's true.
It's very unnatural.
Okay.
And so the more processed these foods are, the harder, the more work our body has to do to break them down. And so, the harder our bodies have to work, it's going to be harder to feel lighter all the time. And a lot of that, it causes inflammation in our bodies. And so, it doesn't mean you eat one soy faux beef burger and you're going to, have a heart attack. But it's not to that extent, but just eating these highly inflammatory foods, compounded over years and years and years, it will start to have an effect on you. And I think that's what people don't realize, because our culture is so, we want that instant gratification, whether it's a result or if it's going to be bad for us. If it's not bad for us in that immediate second, then we think it's fine. But all of these things, especially with inflammation, that's something that can compound over years. And so then that's when it starts to lead to these chronic diseases that we're seeing so much more every parts of the world. I mean, I think, cancer is kind of the biggest one, but diabetes, obesity, all of those.
Okay, thanks for that.
I hope I didn't scare you. If you eat the soy-based stuff, just something to think about, or maybe ask a little bit more questions about the processing.
Okay, so last question. Like, I started like around like 2 or 3 weeks ago with this kind of interval fasting where you are like not eating for 16 hours and just eating for 8 hours. Is that something you would like in general, if you can make a general recommendation anyhow? Is it something you would say try it out, or do you have something like an opinion regarding that?
Yeah, so again, there isn't a one size fits
Yeah.
all, so I can't say try it out without knowing your health history. If for example, if you're a person that's had an eating disorder or disordered eating, then I definitely do not recommend fasting,
Okay.
because that's going to trigger some old habits that hopefully aren't there anymore, and
Okay.
it's just not worth going down that road. But if you're, if it really, again, just it also depends on your lifestyle, so how active you are. For you personally, what I do know about you, I
Mm.
think you're someone that's very in tune with your body and in tune with energy, and you know that you're not going to go on a 16-hour fast and then try to run a marathon the next day.
No.
So, so again,
Never.
it's hard to say with without knowing the person, but it's just really understanding your body's needs and what it needs, and not putting stress on
Yeah.
the body. And keep in mind, though, when you do try something new, your body naturally is going to go through a little bit of a, what are you doing? Oh my God.
Yeah.
So you do need to let that pass. But, if you've been doing it for a few weeks and you feel like you're gonna,
Yeah, I think.
fall flat on the floor, and you need to go to the hospital, then obviously maybe it's not working for you. So again, it's just kind of that test and learn approach too.
Yeah, what I think is interesting, it's like more on a mental level, right? How you start like not to think about food anymore if you get
Mm-hmm.
used to it, right? And then
Yes.
there's a lot of free time not to think about it.
Yes.
So that's for me, it's like fascinating more to watch the mind actually, what the mind is doing there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you,
Yay!
Betty.